All right. Well, here we are at step 4. There's only one step with fewer words than step 4, but this tends to be a bit of a doozy. Um, for a lot of folks, as I mentioned before on step 3, I think people stick on step 3 because they know what's coming next. And for such a kind of a simply stated step, it's one of the ones that kind of people, there's a lot to it. It's the big one. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Simple, right? No big deal. And so nothing in the original manuscript has changed. What Bill wrote originally is what stayed. And I'm going to go to the big book for a bit, and then go into the 12 and 12, because the 12 and 12 really does an incredible job, I think, with this step. But essentially, in the big book, it does a really great job about talking about a personal inventory and talking about a business, right? So a business, in order to kind of know what it has that is useful and what is not useful, has to take this regular inventory. And so it has to look through its product line and to see what is, I guess, selling, not selling, get rid of what is not useful to make room for what is useful, to make space. And that's kind of what we're doing here internally. And there's just some notes, and I'm guessing these are from Joe and Charlie tapes that I made all these notes in here. But talks about a fact-finding process, which is the fearless portion of it. And then it talks a lot about resentments, and resentments are the number one offender. And that's a whole different talk, so I'm not going to get into that. And then it goes into kind of it lists in the big book the three the three columns here on the page, and it goes into the I'm resentful at the cause, and it affects my. And I think it's the easiest way that I've done this is using the Hazelden version. It's kind of a blue and yellow cover. It's a guide, and I think it breaks it down into these columns, and it's who, right? Who's the person? What happened? And then how am I impacted, right? What does it affect? And then what's my part of it, right? That's, to me, that's the easiest way to do it. And what's really important in the step is that it explains that you go down, not across. And so I list all the people before I go through what happened. And so I go down, not across. But I really think that the meat of this step is in the 12 and 12, where it just has these wonderful parts in here where it talks about that creation gave us instincts for a purpose, and that we have these desires, right, for sex relations and material and emotional security, companionship, and these things are surely God-given. But we have often far exceeded their proper function. And this is what tends to get us into trouble, because they start to drive us, to dominate us, and they start to rule our lives. And so it also, there's a line in here which says, every time a person imposes his instincts unreasonably upon others, unhappiness follows, which I think is a brilliant line. But really what it starts to, I think, really break down in this step that I think is the truth about this illness and really the truth about a lot of these issues is that it has nothing to do with kind of what's happening externally. It's everything to do with us. And so in the fourth step, in the 12 and 12, it says, we thought conditions drove us to drink. When we tried to correct these conditions, we found that we couldn't to our entire satisfaction. Our drinking went out of hand and we became alcoholics. It never occurred to us that we need to change ourselves to meet conditions, whatever they were. So we have this mistaken belief that if everything were just the way I wanted it to be, I'd be fine. And one, that's not true. And two, there's no such thing, right? Because I'll keep moving the goalpost. The real, I'm sorry to be boring you, Lucy. Lucy's snoring behind me. She's just bored to death with all this nonsense. She's perfect. She doesn't need this. So the idea of having to set up everything just the way I want it to be okay is just a fool's errand. It just doesn't work. And how about it's me? How about I need to change? How about I'm the one? How about it's not everything and everyone else? How about I don't go into the world and just paint it with all of my shortcomings, anger, fears, stress? And how about I look within and then I meet the world where it is? That's what this step talks about. That's what this step is, getting rid of the things that aren't working in life. And then what happens as a result of living that way is that we become vengeful, resentful, full of self-pity, and this unwarranted pride. And it goes on to say that we have these erratic emotions which victimize us, which often took a long time to see in ourselves, but we could really quickly point that out in others. Which I think is just a wonderful point to make in this step, is how good I am at pointing out your faults and how it can take me a bit to point out mine. So the other part of this goes into kind of how to break this down, because really there's all kinds of ways to do a fourth step. And so you can go into the seven deadly sins of pride, greed, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and sloth. And you can kind of go down that list to see where you fall in line with those, and where things have kind of gotten too far, and where you might have injured others. But again, the idea comes to that I've been maladapted for this world, and instead of looking within, I tried to kind of fit a square peg in a round hole, and I blamed the world for it. And there's this beautiful part here, and I'll stop reading after this. The primary fact is that we fail to recognize our total inability to form a true partnership with another human being. Our egomania digs two disastrous pitfalls. Either we insist upon dominating the people we know, or we depend upon them far too much. Then we develop hurt feelings, a sense of persecution, and a desire to retaliate. always we try to struggle to the top of the heap or to hide underneath it. The self-centered behavior blocked our partnership relation with any of those around us. I mean, just divine inspiration, I think. Just perfectly. How did they know? How did they know that I would try to dive to the top? Lucy, this is good stuff. How are you snoring? She could give a damn. Just to be on top or to hide underneath, right? Which is just the antithesis of being humble. Just the opposite of knowing your place and being there. And thank goodness there's a program that tries to get our footing underneath. But before we do that, we have to know what's working, what isn't. The other thing that quite correctly this step talks about is that a sponsor should also mention the assets a person has, so there's some balance. Because in doing this step, you can just start to feel kind of like an exposed wound. And you can just start to feel like, wow, man, I'm kind of rotten. Like there's not a lot of good here. And so you can start to feel just more kind of short-tempered, lower frustration tolerance, just more kind of ill at ease. And so it's important to know this is a balance, right? We're looking for the stuff that we want to get rid of, but it's not who you are. It's things you have that we're going to get rid of. And so just know that while going through this process, there are probably going to be times of some lower mood, higher stress, maybe some decreased sleep or appetite or increased sleep or appetite. That can go both ways. But just know that and expect that so you don't go kind of down rabbit holes of what's going on. This can be a tough one. And so to that end, do it, right? Write it. And so 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, but something every day. I don't know that I would sit down and do 5 hours kind of at once because, that may be thorough, but, sometimes walking through this with this on your mind through days and days kind of brings up other stuff, right? It unlocks other kind of pathways in the brain. So sitting with this for a bit and being present, I think is important, but, just not to start it and then stop, because now you're just walking around kind of exposed, and that can be a really dangerous thing. But get through it. The other thing that I'll say is that just do the fourth step, right? Don't do 4 and 5. Don't do 4 with the thought of, I got to tell someone. That's not this step. This step is 4. You're writing this down. You're doing a searching and fearless moral inventory. And if you do 4 and 5, it will not be fearless, I assure you. I hope that helps. And I really hope Lucy can show some respect next time, because this is entirely disrespectful. And I don't know. I mean, she hears us all the time. She could care less. All right. See you next time.